Legal awareness day.
We all had a good one. Okay, the first thing we'll do is talk about your journal that you all were supposed to complete on Sunday, which the journal was, there's an interpreter and they are going to be interpreting a community event for a comedian. The comedian is known for having foul language and jokes pertaining to sex in his routine. And one of the deaf consumers approaches you and is asking you, you know this deaf consumer from, the deaf consumer knows the interpreter from church and asks the interpreter to please leave out any foul language that is presented during the routine. The interpreter goes ahead and does this. And the other thing that they say is it's important to know that the interpreter is not aware of other deaf people within the audience. So the interpreter goes ahead and censors out all of the foul language and sex jokes, essentially. So either defend or criticize this with the CPC.
It was a community event, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that the deaf consumer was a part of each other.
Yes.
Okay, the way you said it just confused me. I kind of maybe understand that.
Yes.
No,
The deaf consumer is a member of a church, and the interpreter knows that, essentially.
Okay.
There's no details as to whether or not the interpreter and this deaf consumer go to the same church or how the church is involved with this community event. But the community event is letting you know it is not a church event, it's a community event. Because why would a church invite a comedian who has a bunch of sex jokes and foul language?
I was thinking the interpreter was there for that one person at the event, to interpret
Okay.
that person.
Okay, so did you defend or criticize with the interpreter?
I defended, yeah, but now I feel like I kind of did it wrong because I feel like I think I would have criticized.
Well,
just that
hold
one
on, you can't do it wrong as long as you have CPCs to support your defense.
I do, but I think I looked at it a different way.
Okay, but the way that you looked at it originally, what CPC tenets did you use to defend?
2.2, assessing the consumer needs
Okay,
for that person because they didn't like the foul language or
okay.
But I did defend it.
Okay, and then you said you defended it as well. So
Yeah.
she used 2.2, did you use any
I
others?
used 2.2 and 4.1. They say consider consumer requests or needs regarding language preferences and render the message accordingly interpreted or
Transliterated.
translated.
Okay, good. Did anybody else defend? Okay, Paulette, what, did you use any other CPCs?
I used 2.2, 4.1, and 2.3.
Okay, good. What was the other one? You said 3 point what?
2.2, 2.3, and 4.1.
Okay, so what was 2.3?
Render the message faithfully by conveying the content and spirit of what is being communicated using language both readily understood by consumers, encouraging errors discreetly
And so you're using that to defend the interpreter, not cursing? Okay. Anybody else defend? Okay. So Reagan, now you're saying, oh, I think I looked at it wrong. Why do you feel that way?
Because I think I would have criticized because of the community event, because I mean, they're there to interpret the community event, so just one person going up there and asking that, I don't think, I mean, just because they don't like that doesn't mean anybody else didn't want to hear exactly what the person at the event is, like the comedian is saying, so I would have criticized it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was thinking that was that person's, you know,
Exactly.
that was their interpreter. So I mean, I don't want to hear. I mean, I don't
Signs.
sign
See,
the
that's
words.
that last sentence saying that the interpreter is not aware of any other deaf consumer there, that's why I was like,
Yeah. At first, I was gonna criticize them and say that it's not fair because what if everybody else want to hear the nasty jokes and just one person doesn't want to hear it? I mean, close your eyes. I don't know, but.
Well, so what else do you have to consider about that? Because you guys are talking about, well, you're unaware of other deaf consumers, but what other consumer do you need to consider when you start censoring?
Because it's a
The hearing one. The hearing one. What about your hearing consumer who's written these jokes to be presented with curse words and to be sexually charged? Aren't you their interpreter too? Yeah, for the hearing consumer. Aren't you there to interpret for the hearing consumer?
It's not.
Oh, but
Without you,
the
this
joke.
event is not going to be conveyed to any deaf person, right? But it's their comedic routine,
It's not.
It's
whether it's
their-
message,
their-
it's just not how they want it.
their
Yeah,
presentation.
it's not fair to the comedian because, if there's other deaf people, they're like, this don't even make sense. Like, what are
Right.
they talking about?
Yeah, I mean,
Funny.
imagine a Dane Cook show with no cursing,
Yeah.
or a Cat Williams show
Oh
with
my
no
God.
sex
It wouldn't
jokes.
make sense.
Exactly, it wouldn't, and, okay, and so then the other thing you have to think about is, what the heck is this little church lady doing at this event? Like,
Exactly, that's.
who didn't explain to you how this comedian tells jokes, right? Okay, so for those of you who criticize the interpreter, what CBC tenets did you use to criticize? One of them, Corey.
2.3 because it's not rendering the message faithfully. It's not. By taking that out, it's taking out something that's important to the act. And
Okay.
so, especially if there are other deaf people there, they're not going to get it. And
Good, okay, so 2.2, anybody else? 2.3,
That was-
oh, 2.3, sorry. Carlos, what'd you pick?
I did 2.5,
Okay, which one is that?
refrain from providing counsel, advice, or personal opinion.
Okay, I think you could use that, I
Because
mean,
censoring it according to what he feels is inappropriate is personal opinion.
exactly, right, so I don't find, certain words to be offensive, but I find other words to be offensive. The F-bomb never really bothers me, but racial slurs do.
True, that's good in the interpreter, like, oh, well, maybe this is bad. Maybe not this is bad.
You're giving the interpreter power of censorship. Yep, good. What else? So 2.3, 2.5,
4.2.
4.2, okay, what's 4.2?
I said that as interpreters disregarding the tenet 2.3 is therefore not approaching consumers with a professional demeanor at all times.
Okay, good. So again, you're making it more personal. Oh, I'll help you out. I can do this for you because my job is to be here for you and make sure you get what you want out of the show instead of professionally, your job is to be there to interpret. Great. Andrew.
I have a question regarding the interpretive side of this.
Mhm.
Like, because oftentimes, comedian or not comedian, curse words are thrown in when they're not really needed in the message. Is if that interpreter were to maybe just numb down or increase the amount, like not every time that's fuck every time fuck was said, but like use more facial expressions. Because like in ASL, would you really have every single one of those curse words that he said?
Well, so you're saying when it's not needed, who's deeming when it's needed and not needed?
Well, if it's actually part of the message, or if maybe fuck isn't the right, like doesn't convey the same message.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Do I need to say fuck in the sentence, get the fuck out of here?
No.
But is that the same as me saying, get out of here?
But your facial expression could, like, be aggressive enough.
I
to
see where
be-
you're going with that, like
So-
non-video markers wise, yes. But I wouldn't present that as I'm censoring it or numbing it down. I'm still conveying the correct message. But to me, Andrew, when a person drops F-bombs, like it needs to be conveyed that the person is dropping F-bombs.
Okay.
I think, because I think that is a lot, I think that's, again, if all you do is just change your facial expressions, then this chick is never gonna understand how nasty this guy's language is. So maybe she's gonna keep going to these events, because maybe you didn't censor it, but you dropped the signs and just let the non-manual markers do it. You see what I'm saying? But then the next time she goes and sees this same routine, the interpreter doesn't do any of that. And she's like, well, what the heck? Why is this guy cursing so much this time? He didn't curse this much last time. Well, really, he cursed just as much. So I see what you're saying. I think there could be appropriate times where you're just using non-manual markers to modify, but I don't think you can completely leave out cursing. Like Cat Williams, that guy curses all the time. But can you change it up? Doesn't necessarily have to be the sign for fuck every time. No. There's a lot of different ways that you can convey that concept within a message. So I think that's a yes and no kind of answer. Does that make sense?
But if you were, Yeah.
Yes. So I think, yes, sometimes it's gonna be appropriate, but you can't just drop all of the foul language altogether.
Okay.
Any other tenants that that criticize, Corey?
4.4 is to facilitate communication, access, and equality, and support the full interaction and independence of consumers.
Okay.
By dropping the curse words, you're not really doing an equal thing, because you're caring more about the deaf consumer than the hearing consumer, and that's their message that they want to be put out there. They want all that out there, and also if there's other deaf people that are there that you just didn't come up to you and be like, oh, hey, I'm here,
Mm-hmm.
then it's also, they're not getting the equal message as everybody else.
Right. And deaf people don't have to tell you that they're there. The whole reason Universal has interpreters for the Mardi Gras series is it's general admission. So sometimes when you interpret there, you will get deaf people in the deaf section. Sometimes it's all hearing people in the deaf section, and you're like, how the heck did you get in here? And then sometimes there's no deaf people in the deaf section at all, but that doesn't mean there's not deaf people in the general area.
There's a deaf section for every event, even like shows and stuff.
I think for the shows, it's like go sit down by the interpreters if you want to, but you don't have to sit there as a deaf person, especially in like the Sinbad. If you've ever been in the Sinbad show, it's that huge like stadium style. So if you sit all the way back here and you have pretty good vision, you can see the interpreter from wherever you're at, and if you're comfortable there. But some deaf people prefer to sit like right where the interpreter's at, so they can see the interpreter and see the stage. So it just depends upon, but they are not required to sit in the deaf section. It's just there's a preference. It's an option. But some deaf people don't want attention drawn to them at events like that, nor do they need the interpreter. At a big concert, if they have enough residual hearing, maybe they're there to just listen to the music because they can hear the music. It's a huge misconception about deaf people. They can't hear music. No, a lot of them can, and a lot of them enjoy music. Some of them are very apathetic to music. Bill Cooper loves the Beatles. Every time I wear a Beatles shirt, he's like, the Beatles, I love the Beatles. And the first time he said it to you, my brain kind of went, wait, what? And then I went, oh yeah, you have enough residual that you can probably listen to the Beatles. So, okay, yeah, I think in general, it doesn't matter which way you go as long as you can defend it. Or support it with the CPC. And I think all of you, whether or not you criticized or defended, picked good tenants. It's really, and it's funny because you notice like a lot of the tenants you picked to support it could have also been used to criticize it. And that's often how the CPC works. But let's talk really quickly because some of you picked the language preference as taking out curse words, what they're referring to in language preference. No. So what are they referring to when they're talking about language?
Transliteration versus ASL usually, which mode?
Perfect. There you go. Yes. And it could even be like, I use the Rochester method. Okay. I guess that means we're finger spelling everything because that's what your consumer uses. Now, are you all as young interpreters going to come across somebody who uses the Rochester method? Probably not. Probably not. But older deaf individuals do fingerspell a lot more than younger deaf individuals. Yes, so it's going to be like, do you want more transliteration? Is it more case? And you don't typically ask this directly to a deaf person, right? What do you do in order to determine what a language preference is? Talk with them first. So you arrive early, you arrive like 15 minutes early, and part of that arriving early is not only to portray professionalism as far as I'm here not just on time, but before the appointment will occur, but also to kind of chat with that person to go, okay, it seems like you're more of a, pure ASL. Wow, that's like a lot of ASL, so I'm gonna have to really make sure I'm doing a very strong ASL interpretation versus, okay, I'm seeing some English tendencies, or this looks a little bit, it's conceptually right, but I'm seeing a lot of English word order. Okay, that's going to be case. And we'll talk more about those differences in the next chapter. It's all about like the different language and manually coded methods that deaf people use. Yeah. If you all are not comfortable with cursing, anybody in here not comfortable with cursing, doesn't like to curse, yeah, if you're gonna be an interpreter, you're gonna have to get over that. And just approach it like this. There are times where you may not be comfortable cursing, Shay, but you definitely feel like, man, I am so super frustrated, and you just want to like, ah. So use those interpreting situations to, really get it out.
And so like you were saying earlier, like the difference in like get the fuck out of here, would you sign like the having sex kind of way of fuck or? would it
No,
be
like
different?
so if somebody was teasing me and I was like, get out of here, as opposed to get the fuck out of here, I would have been like, get out of here as opposed to get the fuck out of here. Like, just a gestural, big fat middle finger to your face. But yeah.
There's all different ways.
Yes, this sign is more, like, you will see people sign, like, fucked up, which is not technically conceptually accurate. It would be more like fucked up, which is like, I'm, like, so high right now, I'm fucked up. Like,
What about that's like a fucked up situation? This.
people will sign, that's fucked up. But, I mean, we incorporate the middle finger into all sorts of stuff. Motherfucker, fucking lazy, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck, like, I don't care, I don't give a fuck. You will notice that deaf people, if they are mad at you, and you get this a lot in VRS, they're right on the little thing. If a deaf person is going to flick you off, they don't flick you off, they flick you off. It's not fuck you, it's fuck you. They point it, like, right at your face. And it's very intense when they're, like, on your VRS screen and they're like, so you're like, fuck you! I always feel so bad for those people, the hearing people, but typically they're giving it back and forth.
Yeah, have you ever interpreted an argument?
Oh my gosh.
Argument?
Listen, the weirdest argument that I've interpreted is based just on, like, the conversation. This chick, the hearing chick, is in some way associated with the deaf chick's son. Your son's so lazy. Every time you talk to him, he gets worse. You're ruining his life. And the deaf chick just keeps saying, are we done talking? I want to go. I'm trying to eat dinner. Are we done talking? I don't want to talk about this. You don't know about me. You don't know about my son. No, that's not true. And the hearing chick's just like, you corrupt him. You're horrible. Yada, yada, yada. And it's just getting more and more heated. So it ends with the hearing chick going, you know what? You are just a fucking bitch. You're just a fucking bitch. That's it. No, this was a hearing woman talking to a deaf woman. The hearing woman is in some way associated with her son. I don't know what the association was. We don't get that much information. We just get numbers. That's it. But so yeah, it ends with you're a fucking bitch. That's what the hearing person says. So I'm like in the screen like, you are a fucking bitch. And the deaf woman goes, you know what? I am so over this. My dinner is cold and I don't have a microwave, so now my dinner is ruined. Okay? To which the hearing woman responds, this is the woman that just called her a fucking bitch, goes, do you need me to buy you a microwave? I was like, what? You just got done like completely cursing this woman out and now you're offering to buy her a microwave? I am so confused. The whole conversation had been an argument between the two of them, just like on and on and on and on. And now you want to buy her a microwave? Like, I was so lost at the end of that conversation. I told my ASL1 students this one time, and one of my ASL1 students was like, are you sure you interpreted it correctly? And I was like, yes, I know I interpreted it correctly. People are weird. Trust me. I'm certified in this, okay? But yeah. And she said it just like that. Like she's like, my dinner's ruined now. That's what I said. My dinner's ruined now, and I don't want a microwave to warm it up. It's ruined. And my mom's like, do you need me to buy you a microwave? And that's what I saw, and she's like, no, it's fine. It's the weirdest conversation. Maybe, I don't know. That was never mentioned, but it's possible. Yeah, I agree. That's a good point.
What did you sign when you were? When you said fucking, then something else. What did you actually? I wasn't looking.
Fucking bitch.
Okay, that's me.
Um,
You said, what would I do?
and then I've had conversations between people like, you better tell your cousin to stop cooking meth in his garage because he's gonna end up like my cousin who is in federal prison. That's how he said it. Federal prison. Not jail, prison. And the deaf person's like, don't worry about my cousin. My cousin knows exactly what he's doing, and my cousin can earn money the way he wants to earn money. Well, I'm just telling you should stop cooking meth. I'm just saying.
Who would go through a beer? Like,
You have to, listen, it's very much.
It's confidential though.
Oh, it's all confidential.
Oh,
Like, I can't tell anyone unless I I cannot talk about, I can't call the police for any reason outside of I visually witness something. If I visually witness something, that would be the only time that the FCC allows any sort of confidential reporting, but the FCC is very strict.
Well, I'm sure it's like any kind of phone service, like they were saying they're gonna blow up the White House or something.
If they say it, I can't do anything about it. If they say it, I cannot do anything about it.
But
Now,
the company.
and now, is the FCC in some way regulating, and if they catch wind of some sort of threat towards the White House or the president, may some FBI agent show up at this person's home? But not because I reported, how do I know this guy isn't just completely crazy?
I'm sure they would be.
Yeah. You're making verbal threats, yes, you're threatening our wonderful government. And they're a minor and they're threatening to blow up the White House? I'm gonna assume they don't have the ability to do that. Again, that's very, very sticky. Very sticky. I could morally, again, you're gonna get into that, oh my gosh, I feel very torn about reporting this, but I don't know this person, I don't know how serious they are, I don't know what their background looks like. There are ways for us to report to our supervisors and things like that, and what I say, all we get is numbers, that's all we get. We don't get names from people, obviously sometimes people give names, but there's no way of me, I don't track that in any way. It's all based on there are specific codes set up, and if I needed to, then there are ways that I could report, but outside of that, no. And there's, one of Eli's favorite stories about that whole language preference does not mean you get to be the deaf person's puppet is Eli had a deaf guy call in and was calling one of those numbers that's have a sexy conversation with a hot guy, right? So the deaf guy calling have a conversation with a hot guy phone line. And Eli it starts ringing, and the guy's like, okay, now you voice like a woman, sound like a woman. And Eli's like, I'm sorry, do you want me to transfer to a female interpreter? And he's like, no, I want you to voice sound like woman. So he wants him to make his voice sound like a female. And Eli's like, no, I'm gonna voice normal. And if you want me to proceed with the call, then we can, but I'm going to use my voice. And the guy would hang up and then try and find another male interpreter. Apparently it was an issue because he wanted to see a male while he was having a conversation with a male. But I don't know if those phone lines won't take phone calls from other males. They'll only take female phone calls, so I don't know.
That's creepy.
But could you imagine Eli Sierra trying to do a female?
Can't he say no, I'm not taking this phone call? Is that his right to deny certain services?
Well, no, we cannot just say no, I'm not taking this phone call. We're not allowed. But he can say, no, I'm not voicing like a woman, which is exactly what he said. Because again, we're not the deaf person's puppet. It is not my job to censor out profanity. If you are offended by the profanity that is being used, you need to talk to the hearing person. And vice versa. If you're offended by the profanity that's being used, I told you the story about the N-word. Okay, if you're offended by the profanity that's being used by the deaf person, then you need to tell the deaf person. And I would be happy to interpret that conversation for you, but it is not my job to go, ooh, you know, nigger is a very inappropriate term to use when referring to a doctor or anyone. Probably shouldn't say that. That's not my job.
So you can't decline that assignment, like, but you can decline other, that's like the
Okay, so let me rephrase. If we are truly being made uncomfortable in a call, there are procedures that we would go through to then transfer that call or decline that call. There are really specific things that no, we don't have to be abused, essentially. Like if the person is being verbally abusive towards the interpreter, we do not have to take that call. There are ways that we can get rid of that call. And that's all company policy, and every company is different. If they're like Eli has had a situation where the man was, and often you will get gentlemen, young men and older men, all sorts of different size and shape men, who will call without a shirt on. That doesn't bother me. It's just a guy. You know, half the time I get ladies who are in tank tops, on their phone like this. Could you call my mom? Could you put those away? But I never say that. So it's not but if they in any way expose themselves on camera or anything like that, you don't process that call. That all gets reported. It's an abuse of the system. And you can lose your rights as a deaf consumer if you're abusing the system in some way or another. Eli had one where the guy pops up and he's got no shirt on. Okay, that's fine. Guy doesn't make a call. He just stands up. And he has no pants on. Or underwear. And Eli's like, oh! And so again, there's a process for reporting that. That's abuse to the system. But I have another friend who she was interpreting for this little old woman, and her husband is just walking in the background, naked through the house, and the interpreter's like, your husband or boyfriend or someone? She's like, no, he's sleeping right now. He's sleeping. And she's like, no, he's not asleep. Could you let him know that you're using the video phone, please? And she turns around, she's like, oh my God! And puts it on privacy. And comes back, she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so embarrassed. I would report that. She didn't know that her husband was just, they're deaf, so it's not like they hear them on the, so if he's not paying attention to the fact that his wife is on the VRS, then oops. VRS is a fun setting. It's a lot of fun. And when I was in school, we were very cautioned about VRS because you don't know what's going to pop up. You don't know the level of interpreting that you're going to need to be able to do for VRS. So it is not a setting that I would recommend you go into right off the bat. But once you're a certified interpreter and you feel comfortable in your skills, there's no reason you should be afraid of VRS. And I left my BA very afraid of VRS. Oh, I'm never going to do that because I'm not ready for that. I don't have to voice for random deaf people that I've never seen them sign, and I haven't had time to see them sign. And what if it's a legal conversation, and I'm not ready for the legal jargon that's involved in it? But it's not like that. It's not like I've never had a phone call that I'm like, ooh, I don't understand this guy. Why do I understand this guy? But there are all sorts of, depending upon the company, there are all sorts of procedures to get a team, to, you can always ask for clarification. VRS is great because it very much works like a consecutive setting. And we talked a little about that in Terp 1. Consecutive is nice because you have time to clarify. You have time to correct errors. You have a little bit more control over the conversation as the interpreter. And I say control not as in I get to do what I want, but as in I'm going to need you to hold for a second so that I can clarify something, which you can say as an interpreter. And I say often, Please hold one moment for clarification. Oh, okay, yeah, at 9. You know, and sometimes it's that simple. Question? That was a good one, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, language preference, we have to do what the deaf person says. But you have to remember that there's always two consumers, and so you have to consider what the hearing consumer would want as well. And Dane Cook does not want you to not curse during his whatchamacallit. Yeah, if you've never looked up like comedians messing with interpreters on YouTube, you should. It's pretty funny, and it's something you should see before ever considering interpreting for a comedy routine, because
I was watching an episode of like the Jeff Dunham thing, and he actually had a joke about when he was had an interpreter at a show. He would just have the puppet's mouth going like this, not saying anything, and the interpreter was just standing there. And the deaf people were like, "What?"
Yeah. They poke fun at interpreters all the time. They'll go through they'll say like really horrible, disgusting things and see what the interpreter signs and all sorts of stuff. So it's tons of fun, I'm sure. I've never done it because I do not want to have to do that. Okay. So everybody picked a culture, yes. And you all did some research on your culture. Yes. I'm concerned. Not a lot of people are saying yes. Okay, great. Awesome. So, the first thing on the chart in the book, I believe, is family, right? So, family and elders. So, they talk about in the book, in the deaf community, elders are very cherished. A lot of that is related to the fact that older deaf individuals are, because the language is so young, are responsible for making sure that the language got passed down. They're storytellers, they're activists, things like that. In African American cultures, again, elders are typically respected. It also tends to be a more matriarchal society, meaning mommy knows best. And that is also sometimes the case in Native American settings, but I think that is dependent upon the tribe. So I would venture to say that some tribes are more patriarchal versus matriarchal. Everybody knows what I mean when I say patriarchal versus matriarchal. Okay, so in a patriarchal family, the male line is what is important. The dad is very respected. That's where all lineage comes from, is from daddy. In a matriarch society, it's from the mother's side. Hispanic culture is in a way like this because some Hispanic cultures that you keep your mother's name as well, your mother's last name. So a lot of people have hyphenated last names, and that's because you have both your mother's and your father's last name. So I'm trying to think of an example of somebody I know. Oh, Eli. Eli's last name on all the Valencia stuff is Sierra, but his real last name is Sierra Ortiz. So he has two last names, but he always uses Sierra. Brandon, did you have a question? Oh, I thought you had. Oh, sorry. Yes, so then in Hispanic culture, again, elders are respected, and you also tend to see a lot of families living together. So it is more expected that when grandma and grandpa get to the age that they would not necessarily be living alone, they come to live with you and your family. In North American culture, that is less common, if you will. Okay, so family and elders. You had Haitian, right? Okay, so what did you find about family and the Haitian culture?
But it say children of youth as a gift from God, and must be well cared for fulfill God's blessings. They're cherished, the whole family, sometimes the community is responsible for raising the child.
Okay.
In Haiti, extended family networks can help with children. The lack of extended family and kin support has been noted to be one of the most difficult aspects of raising children in the U.S. Elderly parents often live with their children And the child usually considered it as an honor that a parent has chosen to visit their home.
Okay.
Elders are viewed as knowledgeable and also sought out for counseling.
Okay, very cool. So a lot of respect towards elders, a lot of hands-on raising of children, sounds like, from anybody and everyone in the family. Okay, good. Anna, what culture did you pick?
Vietnamese.
Okay, and what did you find about family?
As far as elders go, they're usually greeted first whenever you go to see family.
Okay.
You bow to them, like bow.
Mm-hmm.
And then the level of bowing, like whether you go this far, just a little bit, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Immediate family would be the nuclear family, husband's parents, the grown sons of the father's side is patriarch.
Okay.
Spouses and children. Extended family is the immediate family plus family members of the same name, plus relatives residing in close proximity.
Okay, cool. Kayla, what culture did you? Okay, maybe.
Mine was marriages are typically chosen by the two parties, so there's no arranged marriages. And then they also do have common law marriage. And then the other thing I found for elderly was that it's pretty much the same as America where it comes to like wills. So it's pretty much up to the deceased person, like who they are giving their inheritance to.
Okay, so it looks very similar to American culture. Okay, Rosemary.
I had gypsies,
Oh, okay, cool.
and families are a big thing for them. They usually marry really young. And like roots are important. Like you have to know the background, knowing the family. Usually they're really large families.
Okay. Paulette?
I have Jews.
Okay.
Family is valued. Normally the father is the head of the family and the mom is more of like educated.
Okay. Yeah. The one thing though about Jewish culture is it is very matriarchal as far as generationally, meaning if mom is Jewish, then you are Jewish. Even if daddy is Catholic and you're raised Catholic, you're still technically Jewish by Jewish tradition. It's all about what the mother's religion is. Now, typically, true traditional Jewish individuals will want to marry other Jewish individuals. Corey.
I have Polish.
Okay.
And it actually seems kind of similar to American, but it's more when you enter a room, you acknowledge the women first, even though it's more patriarchal.
Mhm.
They were the man is the head of the household. When you enter a room, any female is when you acknowledge first, starting with the oldest and going to the youngest.
Okay.
And it's also the elderly play a very heavy role in helping guide their adult children through life still, with helping with their kids and things like that.
So a lot of decision making with elderly. Brittany.
I have the Nevo.
Okay.
They're more of a matriarchal one.
Okay.
They celebrate the women coming to different ages that they hit. And as for elderly, they respect them a lot, but when they pass, they don't go around them because they think they can get sickness from death.
Okay.
And they wait for animals to come carry them and stuff.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, a lot of, I'm sure you found with the spirituality section, I mean, they take a lot of your body, your physical health and your spiritual health are in one. So if your body is decaying, then that's not something that you want to be around if you are healthy still, because that can affect you both spiritually and physically in that culture.
So you said they let the animals come in?
Mm-hmm.
Or they would,
Navajo.
if white people came through or cowboys, whatever, they would ask them to do it because they looked at white people as non-humans.
Okay.
So they didn't think they could catch that sickness.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. So I'm sure more traditionally, it probably very much depends on, do they still live on the reservation, or do they live in
That was back before, not nowadays.
normal modern day society? I say modern day, that sounds like they're living in some sort of past state, but living on a reservation is very different than living in mainstream culture, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how that's approached in mainstream if you are if your heritage is Navajo, how they approach that in more mainstream culture, that would probably be something else to look into. Shay, did you pick one, or you weren't here? Were you? Okay. Amanda.
I have that British culture.
Okay.
And they do respect their family and elders. The young do eventually take care of the old. And they usually keep family traditions
Okay.
for generations or whatever.
All right, awesome. And Reagan?
I'm Jamaican. For our family, I have that it's very important to them and closeness and well, aunts and uncles, the extended family. And I help provide emotional and economic support.
Okay, cool. So very tight family unit. And Carlos, which group did you have?
Japanese.
Japanese.
Both families highly value Japanese culture. The elderly is also highly valued.
Okay.
Like the young will take care of the old, and the elderly are going to pass down oral traditions from generation to generation.
Okay, cool, awesome. And then the next, what was the next thing? Status. And I know that this one was probably difficult to find because even the book says with like African American and Hispanic status and how status is determined is very varying, meaning probably a lot of these cultures are very varying. With deaf culture, your status is really dependent upon storytellers, like popular storytellers are going to have a higher status in deaf culture than a deaf person. Like if you know the deaf person's name, they've achieved a high status in the deaf community. So if you are at all involved in the deaf community and you hear Peter Cook or you see Peter Cook's name sign, that's a big name in the deaf community. He's very, very expressive. He teaches at Columbia University, I believe. What's the one that Andrew's looking into? Andrew Emilio. I think it's Columbia University. He teaches there in an arts program for interpreting, which is really cool because it's specific to artistic interpreting. But he's a phenomenal storyteller, and so very, very highly valued within the deaf community. His status is very high up there.
What is his name?
He used to have a ponytail. I think he still might. I don't know if he's still rocking the ponytail or not. Yeah, his signing's awesome. He's got some great videos. It's a very well known because of that, though. And then within the Native American culture, it has a lot to do with lineage, like who was a tribal leader before and their family and things like that that sometimes determine status, as well as your ability to share resources. So it's not so much how much you can collect, but how much can you help others by providing for them tends to higher your status in Native American cultures. Okay, so then we'll start with Carlos on Japanese status. Did you find anything about that?
Well, the elderly people, again, have higher statuses just because they're more respected.
Okay.
And academics, like the more educated you are, the more of a higher status you have.
Okay, awesome. Reagan, were you able to find anything for Jamaica?
I kind of looked at it all wrong.
Yeah.
I guess I have like a politeness and courtesy are highly valued and that they're rich, strong, and vibrant culture.
Oh, okay. All right. So the more polite and welcoming you are, probably. Okay, cool. Like probably being a good host, it sounds like, does well for status in Jamaican culture. But we have to look into that. Amanda.
I think status is a little different too. I have like the royal family, specifically the queen. She runs the country,
Mhm.
her family. And they've actually been running it since the 1500s, which I thought was kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
And then you can have three political parties. They have Labor Party, the Conservative Party, and the Liberal Democrats.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool. Because I didn't know they had. I know it's from but I really didn't know they had like three.
No, I wouldn't have known that either.
But that's kind of cool because like America has
Brittany. Navajo.
Kind of like you said, it's like traditionally everybody was equal because everyone equally brought different things to the table, except for the oldest household of the residents or the resident group or who've been there the longest. Now it's more so like the medicine man, the teachers.
Okay.
Those are kind of higher ranked in status.
So what your position within the tribe is. Okay, cool. Cory?
Kind of looked at like, well, breaking it was the elderly is more respected, and then the family who takes care of them. When you take care of your family, it's looked higher upon than if you throw them into a nursing home, because that's like your absolute last resort. If you have no other choice, then you can put them in there. But otherwise, you bring people into your home, take care of them, your family stays together, because your parents are what guide you through your life, even when you're an adult guiding your own children.
Okay, cool. Paulette, did you find anything about status?
I kind of put status and time together.
Okay.
So, what I found is that it's all about the relationship with others and how you can learn from other people.
Okay. And you had Jewish culture, right? So it's all about like, well, I know this person and this person, this person that can connect you. Okay, so kind of connections. All right, Rosemary, Gypsy.
I had that families form bands called kumpanis, or kumpanis,
Okay.
and they travel together, and they're led by void code families that are elected for like lifetimes.
Oh, okay.
And then the male is called a chieftain, and the woman is called a kurgan.
Okay.
And they're in charge of like looking after the women in the like the band of people. And then smaller groups of families are called business.
Caitlin?
I just thought that people have mutual respect and cooperation for each other, and all just stay modest, and they believe strongly in their economy.
Okay, and this was, I'm sorry, Canada. Why do I keep forgetting the Canadian? Sorry. Caitlin, what'd you find about Asian culture?
I didn't find anything really, but like from personal experience, I would say like the elderly are higher up and more educated. Because
Okay.
like in Haitian culture, education is everything. Like you need to know, because they feel that they have to be equal to everybody else. Like they have to, I really am. But they have to feel like they're equal to everybody else, so they have to work harder. Have to go like education is like the biggest thing. So the more educated you are, the higher you're up, but not over the elderly, because they've been through more things and they know more things and they can tell you more things. So you'll never be over the elderly, but the more educated you are, the higher you're up.
And Anna.
For Vietnamese, it's obtained with age and education rather than wealth. If you were to rank it, it would be first education, then age, then wealth. And like high status professions are doctor, priest, teacher.
Great, awesome. All right, what's the next thing? Spirituality. So, Brittany, what do you have?
Oh, wait, sorry.
Oh, sorry, work ethic. Work ethic. Okay, for work ethic, the book, for deaf individuals, it says it varies, which I think is very true. You will meet, it's interesting within deaf culture because they are deaf and they do fall under the Americans with Disabilities Act and other laws. Deaf people have, depending upon their economic situation, are able to collect disability from the government. Some deaf people, they collect it and that is all that they live off of. And in fact, they will not take higher paying jobs or full-time positions, because if they do, then they no longer qualify for disability. So they will purposely work less or at a lower pay so that they can continue to collect disability benefits. Other deaf people have never been on disability a day in their life. They work their full-time jobs or part-time jobs or whatever it is and do what they need to do to ensure that they don't need to be on disability. So it's very varying. Deaf people in general don't like it's kind of a catch-22 situation because deaf people don't want to be labeled as disabled, but want to reap the benefits of being labeled disabled. So, if you ask a person like, or if you say to a deaf person, oh, so you're disabled, they would probably be highly offended by that because they don't want to be labeled as disabled. But when it comes to a form and it comes to any of the disability sections, you better believe they're going to check that deafness box as a disability because that means benefits in some sections. And that's just some deaf people. That's why they say it's so varied.
Kind of like senior citizens.
like I don't know. I feel like with senior citizens, do you know senior citizens that don't take advantage of their social security? I don't know. Like once you get to that point, like you take it. I think my dad's like just waiting for the day. He's like just work until he can get social security. Yeah. Typically, I don't feel like I'm sure there are some older people, depending upon the culture, that don't want government handouts. And
I would say more like they don't want to be called old.
oh yeah, no, they don't want to be called old, but they definitely want those senior citizen discounts. Yeah, my parents-in-law have officially hit like the is it AARP discounts? Yeah, so now they can get like the discounted like movie tickets and lunches and stuff like that. And they're not old, like they're very fit, they're very young at heart and everything. But boy, you better believe they're all about those senior citizen discounts at lunch. They're like, oh, we can get the over 55 price. Like,
No, at work we have a senior day where you get 10% off your entire purchase. It's the worst day to work because you have because you
old
have
people.
no, you have really grumpy old people come in and like, well, where's my discount? I want my discount. Or they'll come in and try to return something they got earlier in the week and get it again that day, and I'm like, we're not allowed to do that. I'm sorry, you pay full price.
Yeah, I was like, why would you do that?
No, they literally say, "Oh, you return this, so I can repurchase it with my Tuesday discount." I'm like, I can't do that.
I would just return it and then go back into the store and buy it with my discount. I've done that before.
People have done that, but that I can get away with. But I'm not gonna like return it and have it sitting on the register and be like, okay, now let's get it again.
Oh, come on. They're old.
And then we got like the people that, unless you ask for it, we're not allowed to give it to you. Like it could be some 70, 80-year-old lady with a cane. I can't give it to her unless she asks for it.
That's messed up.
I can get in a lot of trouble for it.
I would just give it to them.
Nope.
I can get in trouble for it. So I do sometimes.
Policy be damned. Give that little.
I
lady
do
the
sometimes,
discount.
but sometimes I don't. And then there's like people on the borderline that get mad at me when I don't give it to them automatically. I'm just like, I don't like working here today.
Okay, where were we at? Corey, you're so distracted.
Yes, I know I am.
Okay, work ethic. African American culture, book says, tend to be very highly motivated work ethic wise, have a strong work ethic. I think that is true. I think there's always exceptions to generalizations like that. Hispanic, they said, typically is strong work ethic, but work at a different pace, a more relaxed pace. We talked yesterday in class about how some Latin American cultures and Hispanic cultures still have the type of work day where they come in very, very early in the morning and they work till lunch, but their lunch is not a half-hour lunch. It's like a 2 to 3 hour lunch, and they go home and they eat and they relax for a couple hours, and then they go back to work. I'm sorry?
The porter the man who goes to clean up the property,
Mm-hmm.
he does that. He comes at like 6 in the morning, but he takes a long lunch.
Yeah.
And it annoys the hell out of my manager,
Mhm.
but he only speaks Spanish.
Yeah.
So she's like,
But that's very traditional in a lot of South American, Latin American cultures, as well as Hispanic cultures. Some of them, I think, call it a siesta, like their afternoon siesta. What is it? From Spain, yes. So, okay, and also apparently that is pretty common in European cultures in general, so not just Spain. And then with Native American culture, it's very much like you need to get done what needs to get done, and it needs to be done in a fairly timely manner, but it doesn't, you getting more done than me doesn't equal you're better than me. It just means you had more to get done.